I should have sat on this side of the room. Sorry.
Jesus.
I wonder if we ever stop to consider how weird the Constitution is. Is it even possible for me to use the word weird in a non-pejorative sense at the moment? As we all know, the power of creation that the Constitution claims doesn't come from God, or kings, or existing norms. It doesn't come from nature or from military strength. It comes from the people. Now, this is pretty well known for us, but it's worth considering who are the people that gives the Constitution their power. The original authors may have believed the people already existed, to which they were merely giving voice. But in fact, there could be no pre-existing people that could claim to be the members of a nation that did not yet exist. There were certainly people living in the colonies, but they were not yet the people of the Constitution. The Constitution calls a nation into being, and in doing so, calls into being the very people it claims as its authority to do so. In literary studies, following the thinking of the language philosopher J.L. Austin, we might call this a speech act. We do something by saying something. So when we get married, we say, I do, and we both say it, but we're also doing it. Saying it allows us to be married. It's also stranger than a speech act, which is already pretty strange, because Austin assumes a subject who can make actions happen by speaking. But in this case, it's the very act of enunciation that creates a subject who speaks. Writing We the People calls the people into existence, and it's the same people who also claim the right to make that call. This is profoundly weird, even illogical. And it's perhaps for this reason, amongst many no doubt, that there has been and continues to be so much anxiety about who exactly make up the people. On the one hand, there are many, perhaps enough, to determine the outcome of a presidential election who believe the people should be defined narrowly. Contemporary claims that elections are corrupt come basically from this belief that the people who are voting are not the people who are represented by the Constitution, and therefore their votes are illegitimate. And undoubtedly, the original authors of the Constitutions would agree with this view, since their understanding of who the people are was very narrow. On the other hand, it's also the case that the definition of the people in the Constitution has expanded over time to include more and more kinds of people: women, African Americans, non-white immigrants, and so on. It's really worth remembering, for instance, that the Naturalization Act of 1790 only allowed naturalized citizenship to free white persons, and it takes until 1952 for the McCarran-Walter Act to repeal that provision. This means that if I had been born in the early part of the 20th century, I'm old but not that old, I would not have counted as a member of the people, and undoubtedly there's still many who don't see me as a member of the people. What the expansion of the definition of the people means is that in practice the Constitution cannot be interpreted as the founders intended, but is rather a living document that continually speaks into being the very people it claims as its authority. It has no choice but to do this, because the composition of the people keep changing, and because different actors are agitating, organizing, and struggling for greater recognition. It's also worth remembering that there are many groups who may prefer not to be counted as members of the people in the Constitution, such as, for example, Native Americans or Native Hawaiians, who are committed to their own sovereignty. So perhaps we also want to be careful not to view all expansions of the people as a positive development. As in so many topics, taking indigenous perspectives seriously has a way of adding a great deal of complexity. I don't know if I have any neat way to end these observations, but here are just a few takeaways, at least that I'm thinking about. We are currently in a serious battle over the meaning of the people, and the stakes can't be higher. The Constitution does not guarantee or even necessarily favor one outcome over another. If we are in favor of a constitutional democracy, we should very much be fighting for an expansion of who counts as a member of the people, with some significant caveats. A narrowing of who counts will have significant consequences and may very well lead to the unraveling of the authority of the Constitution itself. And no matter what the outcome of the presidential election, this is a fight that will continue. Thank you.